gonna wait for a few of you to show up. So I feel like most of the women who've gotten into my live streams recently were not around. Oh, thank you for the like, one person who gave me a like. I feel like most of the women who have gotten into my recent live streams, like my January live streams basically, probably are not really aware or definitely didn't attend my live streams when I did readings about 8 months ago. So my plan or my goal back then was basically to read a bunch of Hello Georgina, was to read a bunch of lesbian books. I wanted to start with lesbian history and then kind of move on to like lesbian theory and then maybe some lesbian fiction. But I wasn't really like, it was theory and history that I was trying to. Oh, hello, stop lying. Anyway, this was my goal like about 8 months ago. This book pissed me off so much. This recent chapter wasn't too bad. The last chapter that I read like 8 months ago before I stopped reading it was like so queer theory. I was like really, really pissed off. Oh, Toss Stones, you were there. Thanks. But yeah, it was like really pissing me off. But then some people, some women, in the last couple days were like, you should talk about like books and literature and stuff. And I was like, yes. But I can't fucking do that until I finish this book. It's like I can't let myself, and that's how I am. Like I'm a really, really avid reader, but I almost exclusively read fiction. Fuck's sake. Jesus Christ. Okay, I'm sorry. Yeah, but I almost exclusively read fiction. So I was like, I'll read the nonfiction on my channel because then it's like a reason to do it. Anyway, I need to finish this book. And since I started it on my channel, I need to finish it on my channel. Luckily, it's much less cringy than I remember it. Okay. So now I kind of want to do like a bit of an analysis or reaction to the stuff in here. Because you might have noticed me making facial expressions or laughing. There was many times where I was like, are you fucking serious? Also, just there's a couple things she referenced that without context might be confusing to you. So she keeps also like generally this is like a very like not safe for work stream. Okay. She talks a lot about enlarged clitorises. If you were not here for the other chapters, you're like, what the fuck is she talking about? Because this book is like a historical. I didn't put the years in the titles. I think I'm gonna go through that and do that in the description. But like this book is like historical kind of tracking of lesbianism. You see the years, right? So in the really early, she talks about okay, like I said, this was like 8 months ago. She talks about basically it's called Sapphistries. I don't know, like it's okay. The reason I bought it was because I wanted to start reading lesbian history, and this one had the earliest like start date. This one starts 40,000 BC, but it's like a lie because it's just like pure conjecture. Like basically the first chapter of this book is like a bunch of second wave radical feminists, like or lesbian feminist women who wrote like an imagining of like the prehistoric world if it was all women, or wrote like an imagining of a planet that's all women or something like that. And she basically takes those and is like, what if this is what the world was? Anyway, it's kind of bullshit. So I obviously I understand her filling in the gaps with fiction. Like even in this chapter, she did it right, where she would say like, we know this about Moll Cutpurse. Here's a play someone wrote about her, and this is like the kind of assumptions they made based on the gossip of the time. This is very common that she fills in the gaps with fiction, which is like understandable. Honestly, even if the book was like a quarter of the length, I would prefer this book to be only like the words women wrote about themselves or their lovers. I feel like that would be like much more, I don't know, like succinct or whatever. Because this book, I feel like 80% of it, and like I understand why she does it. She even addresses it in the first chapter. In the first chapter, she talks about language. In the first chapter, she talks about language. So she talks about like, you know, in different cultures, in different regions, in different languages, the words they use. And then she talks about like time periods. So like how now we would what we would refer to as like a cross-dresser or transgender or whatever, and like looking back. So basically trying to be like, we're not going to paint the past with like through the lens of of contemporary or whatever. Anyway, why did I bring that up? I brought it up for some reason. Anyway, so what are the two things that I thought you guys need context for? Oh yeah, the large clitoris thing. So basically, because everything is like done by and for men, like forever in history, men thought that the only reason, at some point, the only reason women would want to have sex with other women was like to penetrate them. And so they were like, you need like an enlarged clitoris to want that. And then another thing was a bunch of explorers, like Eastern, like Turkish or Ottoman or whatever, went to Africa at some point, and they saw women with larger clitorises than they were used to seeing having sex with each other, and then they went home and they basically started like this kind of stereotype of like, it's women with large clitorises who do this. Yeah, anyway, so it's a reference to stuff earlier in the book is my point, and a reference to stuff earlier in history. Also the hermaphroditism thing, like literally earlier in the book they talk about like 13th century a Germanic trial of a woman, and her crime is impersonating a husband, and she literally insists the entire time that she thought she was a man and didn't know any better, and like she must have been a hermaphrodite or something. Like obviously she fucking knew, obviously. But it got to the point of like doctors examining her to determine whether or not she was a hermaphrodite, because they really, really associated like, if you want to have sex with women, you must have something penis-like. Like it's just heteronormativity in my opinion. What was the other thing she referenced that I was like, I should give you guys context for that? I don't know. I can't remember now. Okay. Obviously also like ask questions and share your thoughts and stuff. This is like now like the free period. I might even do the next chapter today, but maybe not a discussion of it. I don't know. So the thing that was really pissing me off was she kept so when the author was referring to really early stuff, where the only reason we know about these women being put on trial for like impersonating a husband or impersonating a man or wearing the wrong clothes or whatever, the only reason we know about this is because of their trials, right? Like there's no other record of it happening. And when it's that, she she says like, yes, these are women who dressed as men. Then later in history, when she's referencing some stuff in the basically anything after 1900, when she references a woman dressing as a man, she will use a phrase like a female-bodied man or whatever. Brittany says, when I was a kid, I honestly thought my clit was a penis. Like, it's not shocking to me, though, because there is such a lack of knowledge about female anatomy, and especially, like, this. What year did we start in this? What year did this chapter start? Like, the way her chapters work is she'll have, like, a topic, and they're generally chronological in order, but the chapter might start, like, 100 years before the last one ended, so there's, like, an overlap because it's, like, this topic now. But I think this chapter started in 16-something, right? But it's basically, like, I mean, even now, nobody, like, doctors don't fucking know anything about the clitoris. It's just, like, a lack of knowledge, so we fill it in with what we do know, and everybody knows about men. It's really sad. Oh, yeah, and, okay, like, in this book, it's, like, almost, like, half the times that she refers to women referencing, oh, hello, Rose. Half the time she refers to women referencing their own, whatever, relationships with their lovers or whatever. She talks about, like, the woman's role, the man's role, the husband's role, the wife's role, all this crap. Obviously, this is, like, an artifact of the period they were in and the mindsets they had, right? And it's weird to me because, so the author of this book is a lesbian historian. I think she's a historian. And she, whatever. Maybe she does something with women's studies at NYU, I think. Yeah. This is from NYU Press. And so she basically was, in the introduction, she says, there is no books that give you like a global history, because I was looking for lesbian history books. There's like, this is like an Indian lesbian history, this is like a British lesbian history, this is like a German, like, so she was like, I wanted like a kind of global perspective of like throughout all of history, because also a lot of the books are like 100-year period or like 200 years period. Um, yeah. So she's a lesbian. So she was trying to be like, this is all the lesbian shit in like one book that's readable, um, to like the average person. And so I wonder, I don't, I would like to assume, especially the fact that she keeps referencing, at least not in this chapter, but in a lot of past chapters, she references like Sheila Jeffreys, Andrea Dworkin, other political lesbians, Alex Dobkin. Like, she references a lot of second waivers. So I don't think she's hostile to our way of thinking. Anyway, my point is, these women, when they self-refer as like the man's role and the woman's role, like in like the year 1400, it's quite understandable. I don't think that she is editorializing in that tone herself, or like to think she isn't. And to me, that's just really sad that like throughout history, women basically have only been able to conceptualize of lesbianism as like a stand-in for heterosexuality. It's pretty sad. Yeah. Okay. Did I hear German? Dude, there's this book about German lesbian nuns that I really want to read. It's like a history of like lesbianism in German nunneries. And it's like, it's really like, I think it starts in like 1500 or something. There's so many books I wanted to read. Like, I started with the fuck is it? Well, it's here somewhere. I started with this Lillian Faderman's The Story of the Struggle, and it's like, it really pissed me off just because it was like American focused. So I only learned about like basically like the gay movement from like 1920s US to like 2009 US. Like, it was interesting. It was obviously, I learned a lot, but it was like very American focused, and I was like, no, like, this is so fucking annoying to me. And also it was like a lot of stuff about gay men, because but as a lesbian, anything by Lillian Faderman I highly support. So the next I was like, this, it starts back earlier and it's lesbian specific. Like, I really wanted to learn. There's a couple of different books. There's like 3 or 4 different books. I have like a wish list, an Amazon wish list of books. I need to start linking it in all my videos. If you look up my other Sapphistries videos, there's like a wish list and a Goodreads linked there. You can join or buy me a book or whatever. Okay. Let us start at the beginning of the chapter. I'm not gonna like read it. I'm gonna scan it and then comment on the things that I wanted to comment on that I like bit my tongue because I was like, I need to just read it. My hope with this was that you could like download the episodes of me talking or reading the chapters, and you could like listen to it like an audiobook. That's kind of the hope of what I was doing. I literally think like, I mean, we don't need to even think much about it. If you are a woman who didn't want to have sex with a man, and like, okay, she does a really good job in this book, especially early on, because she is saying like really early in history, when we started having recorded, like written stuff, there's almost no situations in which women are like left alone together without supervision from men or for extended period. Like, women's roles, they were like a property of their man and they were like isolated, right? So she was like, it was literally impossible for them to have relationships with each other because they were isolated from each other aside from like their own family members. Um, and she's very clear about women not having power and being incapable of expressing or experiencing their homosexuality. And I really, really appreciated that because given like a lot of the kind of woke shit in this book, I thought she was going to try and like gloss over the aspect of like patriarchy being the main problem. So I appreciated that. Honestly, I would really love to meet the author and talk to her because I feel like she's kind of a crypto turf who's trying to like not get attacked by the queer theorists. She literally says at the beginning of the book, like, I'm going to piss off people on every side of everything, so I'm just trying my best or whatever. Okay. Oh, something else that pisses me off is like another reason I bought this because it's supposed to be like a global study, right? And everything you find is like European. And this book, it's like 80% about European stuff, which again, I understand it has to do with like what was written and recorded. Um, but like she references stuff in India and China, and I'm trying to remember. Oh, for sure in Africa. Are there any other specific countries I can think of? Whatever. She references stuff in like, India, Turkey, and Africa, like a bit, but it's like 10% of the book or something. It's really still mm. Tossstone says archaeology is still struggling to interpret past cultures that are obviously women focused. Yeah, she does talk about that at the beginning of the book, like women focused religions and cultures. Um, but basically that we don't have much recorded information about them. So if you're interested, you can like listen to my readings of the last 5 chapters. Like we're starting at chapter 6. There's only 10 chapters, so we're a good way through. Okay. Something else that she kind of covers is like how before a certain era, I think like before the fall of the Ottoman Empire, basically. I'm not a historian, don't quote me. Um, Sexuality was not thought of as like a person who was like a male person who was attracted to male persons. It was more like you are an individual and you did this specific behavior one time. Like you are an individual and you did this act. It's not like prescriptive that you're going to participate in this act again. It's just like a thing you did. Um, so that's interesting. But I also feel like so she's trying to be like accurate to the period, the mindset of the period. But then I feel like she's moved on to like the modern conceptualization of sexual orientation pretty quickly, even though she's discussing like the 1600s or something at the beginning of this. Okay, whatever. So something that's brought up with the mall cut person, who's the other love interest here? Bridget, is that so Maul recognizes that she's attracted to women, but she is like lamenting, there's no other women who are attracted to me. Like I'm the only one like this. And Bridget's like, if you looked past your own nose, you'd know we're here. And to me, that's like really prescient because basically what's happened is that Maul can't conceptualize that there's other women like her because she has no knowledge that there are other women like her that exist, right? So in her mind, she is some kind of unique freak. Hands up, people who thought they were some kind of unique freak. So many fucking lesbians I've talked to were like, yeah, I thought I was some kind of like freak of nature when I was like a little kid and I was just like this and something to be done to fix it or whatever. Anyway, and so because of her lack of knowledge about other lesbians, she assumed that she must be alone. How, or she assumed there was no existence of other lesbians. How many now, how many lesbians think lesbians basically don't exist because they never fucking hear about lesbians? Like when they hear about lesbians, it involves a penis. To me, it's like very prescient. I'm sorry, Brittany, that you thought that. I hope you now realize that you were like, basically, you were born with like a superpower if you're a lesbian. Okay. Um, I'm also slightly disappointed. Like she talks about masculinity. Oh, hello, Aquamarina. She talks about masculinity and femininity and like gender roles and crossing gender norms and blah blah blah. But like, I guess it's because I'm a rad fan. I'm pretty disappointed that she never moves moves that into the realm of analyzing the connection to like she just there is a chapter where like half the chapter is about how like gender nonconformity and like masculinity, whatever you think that is, or associated with homosexuality. But she never gets into like a criticism of how that inhibits female homosexuality. It's more like societal criticism that she has. Oh my god. Okay, I'm not gonna go back, but there's like a lot of um, things that I had like very big issues with in the earlier in the book, and so you can go look at my past live streams on this topic. Maria Gombutas has written extensively on ancient cultures in Europe, ridiculed by her peers, only now being recognized, like ancient female-focused cultures. Thank you for mentioning her. Oh, fucking bullshit. It's copy, not okay. Hello, Leslie. I'm also surprised how many of you seem to like always be here, considering I'm like I feel like I talk a lot about lesbian shit, and like you obviously are not lesbians. But like basically, I think this book would be good if it passed the Bechdel test. If she rewrote this and the book was only like 20 pages long, but it passed the Bechdel test, I'd prefer to read that fucking book. Rose says, I was excited to speak with lesbian couples started working with me. Turns out they are non-binary. Then she has eye roll emoji. I'm straight and it bothers me. I can't even fathom how this feels to lesbians. Julia says, I thought most of us were lesbians. Well, I think like, I mean, I don't know. Yeah, a bunch of you are lesbians, but yeah, about the lesbian non-binaries thing, it's like, tell me that you think non-feminine women who have sex with women, therefore being unfeminine, don't deserve the respect that women deserve. How do you do that? You call yourself non-binary. Okay, anyway. I'm gonna stop interacting with the live chat too much because, like I said in my other stuff, like I think it's kind of boring for you guys. Okay. Rose says, I don't care who people love. I'm for female voices. Or XX, she says. Toss Stone says, I cannot understand it. Yeah. I know what you mean. Julia says, liking women is the most feminine thing you can do. I know. Like, the that's why I was like, it's like a superpower, guys. Mama, what's wrong? Oh, is my spider in your way? Okay. What does this mean? Can I help you? I think maybe she's mad her chair isn't where it's supposed to be. 1 second. Mama. Here. Don't look at me like that. Vinicius Mora. I wonder why there's no books about the story of homosexuality in Brazil. There's a lot of actual documents about lesbian and gay couples from the colonial Brazil era. The sad part is they were mostly killed or exiled. Yeah. I don't know. It's actually really strange to me. If you look at okay, there are some queer bookstores or women's bookstores. Like literally go to Google, type in women's bookstore or queer bookstore, okay? Then click on whichever bookstore pops up and look for like lesbian history stuff or gay history stuff. You won't really find it. You will find like stuff about the AIDS crisis and stuff about marriage equality, but most of it, like 99% of it is queer theory. I think this affects publishing. Like I was looking for Canadian specific gay history. Sorry. It's very, very hard to find. Obviously there's tons of American shit, but yeah, I know what you mean. It's quite frustrating looking for gay history stuff because, like, I was talking to this dude, this older Canadian gay dude who was like 85 years old, and I asked him, you know, where do you learn about Canadian gay history? Where can you really learn about this stuff? And he was like, you need to go to the gay and lesbian archives in person and read the zines from the 60s and 70s and 80s. That's how you learn about Canadian gay history. And I was like, right on, except it's not super accessible. So yeah, anyway, I understand your frustration. Okay, I'm gonna keep going through the book. Also, my music stand on my bed is like freaking me out. Calm down. It's okay. Are you hungry? Go eat your food. Oh, did Squeaky eat your food? Well. Okay. Julia says I can't stand historical erasure. I'm right there with you, sister. Stop lying. Stop lying says, oh, good night, Julia. Stop lying says I know basically nothing about lesbian history in Australia, and it makes me sad. But maybe I need to try harder to find some. I think it might take. Also, there's a bunch of books that are like out of print that are never listed anywhere. Like on Goodreads, for example, I think there's like two different like lists on Goodreads. Goodreads is like a book reading app that it's like you keep track of all the books you've read and you like form community around that and crap. So they have like these lists where you can add books and then you can vote on the books. Um, and I think they only have two gay history lists. And if you look through it, it's like 90% queer theory. Like 90% of it is like post 1980, and like 90% of it is American. And I think that there's a bunch of, because I know this from speaking to lesbians, there's a bunch of like lesbian books that are out of print that is not listed anywhere because like the people who are making the list now are not reading them because they're out of print. So I think it might take literally like finding some like old school lesbian rad femmes in person and asking them what should I read, and like do you have a copy you can lend me, or do you know what I mean? Like it might take that level of things. D Fitzpatrick says I'm in my 70s and knew nothing about homosexuality until I was in my mid 20s. Yeah, exactly. Like I I have like the similar feelings about like lesbians not knowing that female homosexuality exists and women not knowing about like the clitoris and female or that females can have orgasms and stuff. It's like the ability to have power over ourselves, the ability to have like sexual agency, not in the woke way, I mean literally. And the ability to just have knowledge of our history is like it's just like such a huge fucking problem, like a huge fucking problem. How many girls right now are having like violent, unfulfilling, traumatic sex because they've been told that's like what to expect, that's how it is. Imagine if every girl was being told like this is how you can experience an orgasm, this is how you can like avoid pain, this is what you need to know about your body. Also, did you know homosexuality exists and it's like totally cool and great? And this is a history of it. Like no one is getting that information. So obviously they're just gonna do what the fuck is expected. Anyway, whatever. I don't need to go on about this. But I've talked to also women from non-Western countries, like who like recently, well, like they're in like their 20s or 30s now, who were like, yeah, I didn't know lesbians existed because like there was nothing in any of the books or media that referenced homosexuality ever. So I thought I was like some kind of unique freak because I thought like nobody else was like me. Yeah, Leslie says I'm not sure that lesbianism was even discussed more widely until the 1980s. Yeah. Okay, not to be like totally all over the place and random because it's supposed to be like a targeted live stream. Alcamarina says dust off the button maker and get the word out. Hopefully, before tomorrow, what you will see behind me is no longer this random chair and this little table. Hopefully, you will see like a cabinet thingy with button making things. I have a printer. I have a button makers. Well, I have 2 button makers, and I have like a couple thousand button making parts. What I do not have is Photoshop. So, because my computer issues, as I mentioned before. So I either need to like commandeer my roommate's computer and get Photoshop on it, or I need to like buy a better computer slash a desktop. I want to buy a desktop. Um, I'm hoping that like I can make that happen by April. Okay. I'm actually surprised by how little she went into the female relationships in prison, because wouldn't there be quite a bit of record? I mean, I don't know, maybe not, but also I would like to just say I'm pretty proud of myself with pronouncing all the crazy shit. That's like pornographic. I don't want that on YouTube. Um, like not crazy shit, but things that are not English. Um, oh yeah, I'm also surprised she didn't go more into the servants' quarter thing. I'm guessing that a lot of it has to do with just what was recorded and what wasn't. But like, servants' quarters were separated by sex, and women usually shared beds. Um, like there wasn't a ton of privacy, but like it obviously was situational. So like I suspect tons of lesbian shit was going on there. Um, I also find it very strange, like to me what it made me think of is like, so like Tchaikovsky, there is some letters of him like professing his love for some dude, or something along those lines. And basically because he's like part of Russian culture and Russian pride, they're trying to be like, no, he was never gay. And they're trying to say like, no, talking about loving your friend that way was just like, normal in that period of time. Like really for men to be like, I want to kiss you and caress you, that's normal. Okay. Um so I think there is like slightly more wiggle room for that when it comes to females, obviously. But I think she gave them too much slack. These historians who say that these letters about the romantic friendship, that they were mostly like non-sexual, and that we're just reading into it because we're like projecting our own perspective onto it. I'm like, they're talking about kissing and like caressing and stuff. Like, I mean, I don't know. I mean, that could mean like a hug and a kiss on the cheek. Could mean like full on sex, right? So I don't know. I think it's just like a bit stupid to indulge all that bullshit. There was something about the French Revolution thing that I found really interesting that I wanted to. Oh, I found that interesting. Um, because they actually are agreeing with what like American Marxists or the American Marxist Society or whatever. Um, so the aristocrats, the aristocracy, it seems that they viewed, like she says here, what is important about these attacks in both private writing and the popular press is that love between women came to be painted as a vice infecting aristocratic circles. Um, like this doesn't really have much to do with lesbianism, but it just made me think of this. So I think it was the American Marxist Society or something in like the 1940s and 50s. In their like official handbook, they had it written as they written that homosexuality was a marker of excess. That if you were doing that, it's because you were being like indulgent and opulent, and that if you were more like with the people, you wouldn't be indulging in homosexuality. And then the aristocrats, like it's just that's a really interesting comparison to me. Comutaccio says there is a German word, Busen Busenfreunden, which means bosom friend. It is used for female best friends. How does it not sound lesbian, please? It definitely sounds lesbian. But like, okay, the thing like caress and kiss, how they're like it's subjective, like it is subjective because they didn't have the word hug in like the 1700s, right? So they use the word caress. And like bosom, like we think like boobs, like sexual, but they didn't live in porn culture, so they thought boobs were more like just femaleness and like motherhood. Um, but yeah, it definitely sounds lesbian. Said lesbian to me. Um, yeah, I think that also comes from Marxist philosophy. I don't know though, because doesn't I don't know a fuck ton about Marxists because most of my Marxism was like on Tumblr, so definitely not very informed. Um, but doesn't Marx say that the base unit of oppression starts at home, and it's like the woman being exploited within the home? So then wouldn't it be like as a mother and a caretaker and blah blah blah? So then wouldn't it be like the ultimate expression of Marxism is for women to couple with other women and to like never be exploited by men in a way? Comes from capitalist degeneracy. Thank you, Vinicius. Vinicius, are you a lesbian or are you a guy? Like, oh, you're a gay boy. He already said. Vinicius says a lesbian woman made me feel like I was not alone in the world as a young gay boy. Today she's a trans man. I'm very sorry. Tossstone's contemporary women in prison today talk of the solidarity of women being found inside. Completely agree. Yes. Okay. Let's keep going. Then we talk about some English aristocracy here. I just am like continuously disappointed and shocked but not shocked at the different like types of exploitation I've learned about in this book. Like I didn't know that Shakespearean actresses were basically prostitutes until this book told me so. Um so that's depressing. Because they were like, this woman was notable because she didn't take money from males who wanted to fuck her, basically. And I was like, well, that's fucking depressing. Oh, also I'm gonna reread this. French monarchy came to represent depraved female in a popular pornographic text. I think this is from a French pornographic text. The court lost no time going a la mode. Every woman turned both tribad and slut. No children were born. It was easier that way. A libertine finger took the place of the prick. End quote. So like the no children were born. It was easier that way. Yeah. Yes. Literally. It mentions in here in two different contexts. It mentions, I think, in the European context and a Chinese context, women not wanting to get married. Like if you don't want to, and having a fear of childbirth. If you don't want to get married or have babies, like not that it's an option, but lesbianism is a good option for you. um, yeah, I really think a lot of what's talked about in this chapter of the women being like basically seen as like evil and dirty because they have like their own sexual desires is really, really, really based on the idea that like men is like the sexual aggressor and women is the sexual like passive. And so like any woman doing something that's not passive is viewed as some kind of freak. Shakespeareans only allowed men to act. Yes. Who was that actress then? What year was that? Right. They mentioned it was after this India stuff. It was Romantic Friends. It was before Boston Marriage. Maybe it was Shakespearean as in she acted Shakespeare. Because I think it was like 1820s or something. Yeah, whatever. Okay. I also think it's funny that at this other the French poetry stuff from the Contest de Pognac, the grievances of the fucking bitch de Pognac, slash or the regrets on the loss of the cocks of France. Um, and she talks about like basically women deciding not to have sex with men. And how that's like a loss to the men. And I'm like, yes, exactly. The men are losing out on their opportunity to like use your body the way they want to. So then it's no surprise that they have like all these like derogatory and negative like attitudes and ideals about the whole thing. Um, I think after this book, when I do readings, I'll do like my reactions live because it's really hard to remember all the spots where I was like, wait, but you said this one paragraph ago, it doesn't make any sense now. Oh, something else I want to talk about. So she talks about like pornographic propaganda in the French Revolution and stuff. Um, and how basically it presented female homosexuality as something that existed, but it presented it in a very, very negative light. And that also was prescient because it reminded me of I've talked to so many detrans women who were like, well, like I knew what homosexuality was, but when I saw like porn and like porn culture related media depicting lesbians, I thought, well, that can't be me because that's like some gross person or a bad person or like a fucked over person or like an oppressed or whatever. This is like a something bad or gross or mean or freaky, and I'm not those things, so it can't be me. Um, and that really, yeah, that made it reminded me of that. Because her conclusion is that like her conclusion of that is that even if the pornography was meant to attack the noble women, the aristocratic women, that at least it acknowledged the existence of lesbians and how that must be a good thing. So they'd know they're not isolated. And I'm like, but you might not apply that to you because these are like, especially back then with class, like people really, really thought like you're born in this class and you're like a separate person from people who are upper class, as far as I understood it. I'm glad she covered the Sworn Sisters, um, the from China. She also talked in earlier chapters about the Sworn Virgins from Albania or the Balkans generally. I think because it predates the Sworn Virgin thing predates that all that shit in those countries. Um, I found it very interesting, but I honestly wish she would have gotten more into the nitty gritty of it. Like all she says is that women were allowed to live together or whatever. And I'm like, what does that mean? Who's bringing in the income? Who allowed them to do that? Was their family okay with it? Was the government okay? Like who? I just feel like she should have got more into the nitty gritty of it. I find it very interesting. Oh, okay, and then the Rekti, the Urdu poems. Um. So, again, this is very relevant to the earlier parts of the book. Here, she at least is referencing a lot of letters written by women, poems written by women. Like you might think I read that when I was reading it. Wow, that was a lot of man-focused stuff. This is like the best it's been all of the whole book. Earlier in the book, it was like almost exclusive. There was chapters where it was like almost exclusively men's um, interpretations and knowledge and stuff, just because that's what it was written in those time periods. But yeah, the Rekti. So these are obviously poems written by men to like titillate themselves about lesbians. Um, what does that have to do with lesbians aside from acknowledging that we exist? I don't mean like I just don't. I mean, I think it's worth mentioning, but I feel like she spent quite a lot of time on it. Um, like I think it's worth mentioning because it is very explicit. It's very obvious they're having actual sex. There's no like ambiguity like the romantic friendship thing. But at the end of the day, it's all from the voice of a man, and it's him imagining what women do. So like, what does that? Who fucking cares? Like, what does that have to do with anything? Um, like, imagine you asked some random poet from current day, like right now. Imagine there was like some poet from England or something, and you were like, okay, we want you to write about lesbianism. And then in like 400 years, they'll like look up this one poem by this one dude and be like, see, this is what lesbianism is. It's like it doesn't make any fucking sense to me. Um, Also, like, it's a bit annoying. Maybe I'm not multicultural enough, but I think I'm a pretty fucking multicultural person by most standards. Um, with the Chinese and Indian stuff, she'll just say, "Oh, this poet, Shaikh Kalandar Baksh, wrote this poem," and I'm like, "So how do I know if it's a man or a woman?" Right? Like in English, if she was like Jonathan Smith wrote this poem, I'd be like, "Oh, okay," because I know like English culture, I can assume Jonathan is a man. The marriage resistors in China had their own banking system that gave them independence. They were very organized, says Toss Stones. I've vaguely heard about this, but I've never really done research about it. After the live stream, I'll probably go watch like a documentary about it or something. Okay. Yeah, so we don't know who is a man or a woman talking about these Indian poems. Oh no, she wasn't a Shakespearean actress. She was a comic actress. I don't know why I said Shakespearean. Oh, of the Ann Lister stuff. I'm kind of disappointed to learn that Anne Walker was not like her true love, even though it's kind of implied in the show, just because it's like they're the love interests of the TV show. So it'd be nice if they were like real soulmates, but whatever. Like the show starts with her coming back from France and like being broken up with by Marlowe and being all depressed because she was in love with her. Who was the Australian saying that they didn't have access to lesbian history? Was it Stop Lying? Well, thank you for the. I'm gonna add it to my reading list, even though I'll. Leslie Farrington says there is a book called Lesbians Ignite by Jean Taylor that looks at lesbian history of the 1990s in Australia. Thank you very much. Okay. Tossstone says Charlotte Cushman was called the most famous woman in the world at the height of her career. Okay, well, I guess I didn't have that much commentary on the book. I feel like as I was reading, I kept thinking like, "Wow, this connects to this and this and this," and I have all these thoughts. And then I went back, I couldn't fucking remember anything. I don't want to turn this into like a Benji soapbox. This is definitely staying up on my channel. But if you guys want to like ask me stuff or whatever, that's cool. Leslie, are you Australian? For some reason, I assumed that Stop Lying was American, and Toss Stones, I have no idea, but I keep assuming you're from New Zealand. I don't know why. Yes, Ocarina was like maybe take notes as you read and tuck them into the page. Yeah, that's what I was thinking. If I had at least written like the page in one word, I could like find my way back. Um, we'll see. Like I'm gonna see how this evolves. When I'm done this book, I'm gonna have you guys vote, I think. Because I think I want. Okay. I would like to read one of these 4 books next. Actually, you know what I think I'll do? Okay, both of these are anthologies of essays. Maybe what I'll do is I won't read these like the whole book. I'll just read the essays randomly until I get to the and I can like make a playlist until I've read all of them. Maybe I'll have you guys vote on this. So Linda Blade's book Unsporting, or Kelly Cogswell's book Eating Fire My Life as a Lesbian Avenger. This is like semi-auto, it's like mostly autobiographical, and this is like obviously nonfiction. Because people were asking me to read more lesbian stuff. Like this I think is good and cool and everything. But yeah. Toss Stones is like Kelly. Because I want to focus more on like lesbian history and stuff. And this is like semi-fictional, I don't know. I think it's like mostly an autobiography. I'm gonna read you the blurb. At once streetwise and wistful, Eating Fire is a witty and urgent coming of age memoir, as well as the first in depth account of the influential lesbian adventurers. A rare insider's look at the process and perils of street activism, Kelly Cogswell's story is an engaging blend of picaresque adventure, how-to activist handbook, and glorious inquiry into questions of identity, resistance, and citizenship. Oh yeah, somebody, um, a D-trans dyke I really respect, told me that this book is like a step by step of like how to do grassroots activism, and to really okay. Everybody, this is the book I'm reading next. Okay, although I might take a break and just do one of these essays, or one of these essays, in between. I have quite a bit of. Isn't Orlando also a collection of letters? Is Would you guys like me to read Virginia Woolf? I feel like Virginia Woolf is so accessible. Maybe I shouldn't bother reading any of it. I don't know. This is just a normal book. Okay, whatever. Um, yeah. Okay, so I guess I'm gonna read Eating a Fire next, but I have to finish this book, like I said. How tired am I and how many pages? So that last chapter was 40 pages. Let's see how long the next chapter is, because I really want to like power through this and get fucking done with it, because I'm really kind of sick of it. That last chapter started on page 105 and finished on page 149. I mean 142. The next chapter is only 20 pages. I think I'm going to end this stream and read the next chapter. I'm not 100% sure if I'm going to do like a reaction video or whatever. I need to go put on a load of laundry and then I'm going to read the next chapter, okay? Thank you all for showing up, all 23 of you. If you have any books that you'd like me to read, any books that you own that you want to mail me, I don't fucking know, whatever, email me. Okay. Also, I'm getting some like old feminist newspapers from Alberta mailed to me, and there might be some really interesting stuff. I'm excited to look through that and probably read some of that stuff on live stream. Vinicius Mora says thank you. No, thank you for showing up and commenting and engaging and stuff. I'm gonna go put on a little laundry. I'm gonna start a new live stream to just read through chapter 6. Dude, I replied to your email. Didn't I reply to your email? If I didn't somehow reply to your email, I'll double check later tonight. Okay, I'm gonna put on a little laundry and start the next live stream. Yes, please click the like button before you leave to help me with the algorithms. I will schedule the live stream the moment I end this one, so you can like turn it on, and then when I'm done putting on my laundry, that like you'll be here. Okay. You don't. Okay, Aquamarine, I will email you later tonight, because I like yesterday I finally replied to all my emails and I was like yes, or the day before, whatever. I was like success. You stopped avoiding your email, and then okay. Well, I'll email you again. Okay. See you all on the flip side. Bye.